Recording in progress.
Good evening. This is to formally advise, as required by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 36, Sections 18 to 25, and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16, 2021, as extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, the Yarmouth Select Board will hold a public meeting on Tuesday, February 11th, 2025 at 5:15 p.m., beginning with executive session and then opening to the public no sooner than at 6 p.m. in the hearing room, Yarmouth Town Hall, 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth, Mass. 02664. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided on the town website. The Yarmouth Select Board will consider entering into executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property at 316 Route 28 Pump Station, and Section 21A3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the Yarmouth Professional Firefighters Local 2021. As the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. I'll entertain a motion.
With the amendment that it's local 2122, I so move.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we'll have a voice vote. Mark?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Joyce?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. We are now in executive session. Can you just let
Yeah, but you definitely don't want to have anything lying around.
You can just sit here.
Thanks for all your work with this one.
Yeah, no problem.
I'll get to that later.
I have not heard,
I think I'm ready to take my coat off finally.
I think that's a good idea.
so I just wrote where pending fire chiefs. I don't know if she told you.
We make them subject, they can get them in, because it's not the fire department's fault. Okay, what are we doing now? Oh, wait, we're in a 5-minute recess.
Probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
Careful.
Wouldn't be good to trip now, would it?
No, please
I'm
don't.
finally better.
I think it's the computer as well. Let's check it and battery power.
Tracy?
Yes, ma'am.
Hand these in and shred them, or
No, just
you
keep
just
them,
discreetly take them home
keep them safe.
and lose them?
Plastic all over the back of my leg.
I think we need,
Bob, do we have
I
any
think we need new chairs.
It's awful.
Yeah, yours is
Yeah.
really.
It's all of a sudden,
Try to not sit here as long.
I think it's the
Get around
ZBA.
the edges.
It's not the select board, it's one of the other boards.
Some pleather on it.
Yeah.
These are so much better than the old wooden ones we used to have. We used to have wooden ones that were really tough. Years ago, right, Mark? You sat in those wooden chairs, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. They're rough.
Awful. Now you just get plastic all over the back
I
of your
know.
outfit.
I know.
Ugh.
Okay. We're going to be going back into open session. If I could ask you all to join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. On the agenda at this point, we have announcements. Bob, do we have any announcements?
I do not.
No announcements today. Okay. Public comment. Do we have anyone for public comment? I see a hand up. Mike Duffy. Just need to unmute you. There you go. Can you hear me, Mike?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can indeed. Go right ahead.
Okay, so aloha, select board members and members of the public from sunny and warm Maui.
Oh,
As you know, my name is Mike Duffy.
No, I'm kidding.
can we come?
Well, you know, I wondered, I was waiting for 20 minutes for you. I wondered if this was going to happen, so, but, at any rate, it's very nice here. Not so nice in Yarmouth, a lot of snow lately, according to what I've been seeing. But I believe several of you may remember me from previous interactions with the board. Just a little refreshment here. After my retirement from the National Renewable Energy Lab in Golden, Colorado, my wife and I returned to Massachusetts and settled in Yarmouthport. In 2016, I was appointed to the Energy Committee, and in 2017, I started investigating energy usage in the Mass Energy Insight database for Yarmouth municipal buildings and Dennis Yarmouth school buildings. That effort was to support the Yarmouth Green Communities proposal. As a result, I know there are significant energy savings to be realized within Yarmouth if we put our minds to it. Thus, as the acting chairman of the Yarmouth Energy Committee, I would like to offer my enthusiastic support for the town of Yarmouth to support an application for the Mass Save Municipal Energy Manager Grant. Mahalo. That's thank you in Hawaiian.
Aloha. My one and only. Thank you, Mike.
All right, am I on video? Can you see me?
No, I'm afraid we can't.
Our loss, Mike, our loss.
You don't see my Hawaiian shirt then, okay. Got it out just for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I see another hand up for Susan Starkey.
Can't do better than following Mike for that, but I'm calling for the same reason to say that I really appreciate you all looking into the grant for an energy manager, and hope that you will move forward with that. I'm assuming that you will. It seems like we all need to learn how to respond very quickly. I do a lot of work with, energy efforts and climate change efforts, and it seems like we'd get no time to prepare for things, and all of a sudden they're here. So thank you for preparing. Yes, for doing this. I'm also interested to see on the agenda that there's a possible crosswalk at Thacher Hall, and that would be absolutely wonderful, because that is such a dangerous intersection, and I think it's getting to be time to look at whether it's roundabouts or electric lights in Yarmouth. We need to do something to make it safer here. So those are my two inputs for today's agenda. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Susan. I don't see any other hands up. No one in the public. At this point, we're going on to a special alcohol license hearing, and I turn it over to our licensing chair.
Thank
Tracy
you.
Post.
Chair, I will read the notice into the record. Okay, the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen, acting as the licensing authority, has received an application from the Cultural Center of Cape Cod, Meg McNamara, Director of Business Operations, for a special alcohol license to serve and sell all types of alcohol at 307 Old Main Street, South Yarmouth, Mass. 02664 on 2/13, 2/14, 2/15, 2025 from 5:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. and on 2/13 and 2/14 from 1:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. on 12/15 for the theatrical Edgar Allan Poe Speakeasy event. This is an amended legal notice regarding the special alcohol license hearing, replacing the information which appeared in the legal ad section of the Cape Cod Times on Thursday, January 23rd, 2025. A hearing will be held on February 11th, 2025 in the hearing room at the Town Hall, 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth. The Select Board meeting begins at 6 p.m. Written comments will be accepted until 4:30 p.m. on Friday, February 7th, and at the Selectman's Office, Town Hall, or can be submitted electronically to public comment at yarmouth.ma.us. And with that, we'll open the hearing.
Tracy, may I stop you for just 1 second, please? Susan, would you mind muting your microphone for us? We're still hearing you in the background. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Welcome, Molly. If you want to introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about your application and what you're trying to do here.
Thank you, Madam Chair and select committee members. Molly DeMillionaire, Executive Director of the Cultural Center of Cape Cod. Thank you for our hearing this evening. As you know, we do lots of great cultural things, and who knew that Edgar Allan Poe was such a hit? but it is, and it's happening at the Cultural Center of Cape Cod. There is actually an external entity that is coming in to rent the facility for the 3 days, and we're really excited. And so they're bringing all kinds of new people to Cape Cod, into the Cultural Center of Cape Cod, and with that, they would just like to serve. They have these kind of 4 little drinks that they serve during these different theatrical performances in line with Edgar Allan Poe, and so that's why it's a kind of a special event for us.
Excellent. Okay, so just for the public, we have the certificate of liability and affidavit that abutters have been notified. Is there a caterer, Molly, or who will be
There's no food
serving it?
service. There's no food service. There's tip certified bartenders that will be serving the cocktails.
Okay, so who's going to manage and maintain the alcohol? I guess my question is for you, Amber, because when we've done these before, we've had to issue the license for the whole time that the alcohol's on the premises. So the times that have been advertised for, unless the alcohol is going to be removed from the premises and put back on the premises, I think we have to issue it to contain the whole time, if I'm correct.
There is a 3-day window that allows, outside of the times that they've put in,
Right.
to allow for the transportation and storage. But if we do need to extend that,
I think we have to,
cover-
I think we have to give them a license for the 3 full days.
gotcha, as opposed to the.
As opposed to those particular times,
Gotcha.
just so you know, because otherwise they are not authorized to have the alcohol on the premises, which would be problematic for them. So, and I know that's how it's been in the past, when there were caterers involved, that it was for the whole window until the alcohol is removed from the premises, so.
And because there's no caterer, they would need to, yes.
Yeah. So we've always just been told to give the hours of the actual event, so.
Okay,
yeah.
that's great, but
Yep.
I think for our purposes of the board, I think we need to issue a license for them for not just the event, but for the time that the alcohol is on the premises, so.
So moved?
Thank you.
Well, does
Yeah.
anybody?
Oh, of course, we have a hearing.
Does anybody from the board have any comments or questions? No. Does anybody in the
Only in
public
support.
have any comments or questions? I'll take a motion to close
Okay.
the hearing.
I move that we grant the license as,
Close the hearing first, please.
sorry.
Please make a motion to
Oh,
close
move
the
to
hearing.
close the hearing.
Is there a second?
Sorry, Tracy.
That's okay.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now we can,
I move that we approve the proposal as stipulated and with the allowance for the transportation time for the alcohol.
so we will approve the license for, from February 13th through, we'll say 11:30 PM on the 15th, and then they have time after that.
Yes, and I'll add
So we'll-
conditions that it serves between these times, but on premises allowed for.
Correct, perfect. Are you okay with that as your motion?
I am.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Good
Thank
luck.
you so much for your consideration.
I'm interested in these Edgar Allan Poe drinks.
Come see it, Tracy.
I might. I might. Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Tracy. Next on our agenda, we have review of the select board goals.
Madam Chair? I'd like to suggest that what we do is we just table this item for, and take it up after we handle the annual town meeting warrant, so that what we do is proceed to the Green Communities Grant, then go to the discussion of the Crosswalk and the Energy Manager grant application discussion, because there are probably some people that are watching, and I think the sooner we get to this other business, I think it might be more convenient for the public.
Well said. Okay. Then we'll move on to reallocation of funds from the Green Communities Grant. Bob?
We have a memo from Jennifer Mullen, our finance director, and she's not with us this evening because she's ill, so hope she gets well soon. And we are trying to take care of with this Green Communities Grant. It was a competitive grant. We had hoped to be able to reallocate the funds because we just don't have the right time frame on the if there's going to be an anaerobic digester to use this funding for that purpose. It's not at that point, and they've indicated where it's a competitive grant that we can't reallocate the funds, so what and she's seeking to do is to close out the grant, and that thereby we don't get the funds for the anaerobic digester, but we're free now to, there's competitive rounds that come up every year. We can make a new application and apply to a new competitive round under the Green Communities Act and move forward, because right now we're sort of stuck. We can't apply for another grant because we haven't completed this competitive grant.
Madam Chair?
So, yes?
I had a question, Bob. So have we been reimbursed for the things that we did do as this, in this competitive grant?
I'm not exactly sure the status of the funds, but we're eligible to be reimbursed for all of those things, and we just have to, I think, file the final reports.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? I'd entertain a motion.
Well, I have questions. So we wrote the grant specific for the anaerobic digester, and we're saying we're out of time to utilize that funding for something else?
No,
That's what we were going to use it for,
that's
but
what we were going to use it for, and what the state has indicated is that it was a competitive grant that was matched against, all of the other grants and judged on its original merits. So under this program, they don't allow you to take the money and spend it on something else. But we can, if we close out the grant, we'll be eligible to make a new application, and these rounds, they keep occurring. We just don't want to be stuck in round one. And,
okay. Understood.
Any other discussion? I entertain a motion.
What is the motion? The motion is to reject the remainder of the grant?
Well, I think the motion, and I'm happy to make it, I will move that we support the request from our finance director to close out the grant of July 25th, 2022 from the Green Communities Program, and that we obviously support reapplying for said funds at a future date for another energy-efficient project.
Does that need to include something about the money, less the money that we've already spent? Or just based on her memo? I don't want to close it out like we're going to send all of it back, because we're not.
No, with the, and we haven't, I don't think, received the funds, they just don't reimburse us for it. And it would be that with all of the funds, the project's completed with the exception of the $160,000 anaerobic digester item. So that's the item that's closed out.
So I'll modify my motion to include that language.
Thank you. Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes, anybody opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, we have a request to make a recommendation regarding the crosswalk at Thacher Hall. I don't see anyone present to speak to it, but Susan Mueller did send us an email regarding that, and she estimates that 2,500 to 3,000 people use this crosswalk each year based on the number coming to events around the Common or at Thacher Hall, including concerts, weddings, recitals, community events like the Stroll, Halloween, and all around the Common. There were 400 people at the Halloween trick-or-treat and 1,000 at the Stroll that we counted at Thacher Hall. Often these events are held at night. The crosswalk has no lighting, no warning, and ends at the Common, where it dumps people down an incline. I suspect you might remember it. We do use crossing guards and occasionally police details at the crosswalk, but we fear for their lives. A police officer was almost hit last Halloween, and a couple of our volunteers have had close encounters of a bad kind. We know this is a state highway and that there's not much the Yarmouth traffic people can do, but we would like to approach the state to include an upgrade for that crosswalk in their plan for the village. We'd love to see upgrades like they did with the crosswalk on Cobb's Hill and Barnstable, which now is flashing lights, signs, etc. Dave Nolan at the Cape Cod Commission suggested I reach out to the Massachusetts DOT to get them to include it in their survey of problematic intersections on Route 6A corridor. And Dave says the commission will include it in their list of problem spots, but he also suggested that support from the Yarmouth Select Board might further encourage the state to do something. I'd be happy, and this is, thank you, Susan Mueller. So,
So there was also some correspondence went back between the commission and Kathy, our town planner.
Well, it dates back that what we showed in Kathy, I'd like to thank her very much for going back in the files and found out that this has been an item for discussion for many years now. So I think it would be very appropriate for the board to write a letter of support to the Mass DOT to move that forward. And there's some design ideas that have been discussed and, that they've looked at that flashing crosswalk sign as well. And so
That would be part of the Mass DOT's process after looking at it, correct? That they'd come back with recommendations like they have in the rest? Okay, I make a motion, we send that letter.
Second.
all those in favor, discussion?
Just to be clear, we are supporting the request that the organization that manages Thacher Hall, they're actually reaching out to Mass DOT and making requests to look at it.
No,
We're
we're sending a letter of support of that.
Idea. We're sending a letter of support
Well,
for the
I'm
need for a
just reading from
crosswalk.
the memo. It said that they would like us to support their request.
And they have a letter to DOT as well, which we don't have. She said she'd be
yeah.
happy to give us a copy of it, but
Okay,
And-
but,
write a nice support letter.
So send a letter of support with their letter.
Right, we need to get a
That
copy
would
of
be
their
the
letter, so,
motion.
make sure we're linking
Okay.
together.
Okay.
yeah, so what she's requesting that we do is we support their request of for Mass DOT to study the problems with this intersection and solutions to address it.
Right.
Right, so I'm fine with that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to Energy Manager Grant application. Liz is not with us this evening. She's traveling, but I understand that, Bill, you have a few comments.
Excuse me. The board should have a memo dated February 6th from myself regarding the energy manager position. Liz Argo put a lot of work into filing the grant application, which she became aware of in a very short period of time. This is in front of you to gain your support and convey that support then to the state to move forward with the position. What I've outlined in the memorandum is the job description and the anticipated deliverables that the position would need to have to the grantor. So it's important that when, if you move forward with this and when they are, and if we get a acceptance and when they're hired, that we put them in a position where they can meet those deliverables, but also meet some of the more emerging issues that we face, which is a furnace that's, dated 1987 and it's inefficient. There's, studying you need to do, but then there's things that we need to do right away. Everybody knows that the West Library, the furnace gave out, and there are other things that I think in the conservation area that as we do the work that the grant requires, we need to make sure we're also doing that sort of more intermediate and short-term work, because that's the kind of work, the senior center, for example, getting that to be more of an efficient building is going to, reduce emissions and reduce energy use. So it's important to sort of understand the time allocation for this, because in the grant, and it's actually highlighted or underlined in the bottom, they expect us to push other municipal staff in to assist this person. So where they lie within the organization and what their role is going to determine what they're able to accomplish. And I think that's what's going to be important when before we onboard them, to not only get the job description, but what is the anticipated outcome. I've had a position like this under me, and we did conversion of the street lights to LED, and we took over the street lights and those things. Just the research on the billing was enormous. it was advantageous because we were finding out we were getting billed for streetlights that weren't there anymore. But I think we need to make sure as we do this, we do it so that that system stays in place and it's efficient, so they're not spending all their time on that kind of work. Because as you can see, the state is anticipating a lot of deliverables from this position. I mean, it's all good work, and actually it lines right up with the Energy Committee work in terms of monitoring and other aspects to the position. But they have priority goals here, and then they actually have annual deliverables, a 3-year energy management plan, things like that. And the difficulty in some of those things is actually getting the data together to be able to do that. So I think it's a worthwhile position. I just think that at the end of the 3 years, we probably want to point to it and say there are physical improvements and other improvements that have paid for the position, so let's move forward and even get more. So that's really where you want to be, is the position pays for itself after year 3.
That was my question. What do you do at that point in time? Is this grant authorized for a consultant position, or it has to be an employee?
Has to be employee.
Okay. And what's the town's ownership in it, in terms of, does the grant cover benefits and?
Yes, it does. It covers benefits, wages, direct salaries, overtime pay, sick days, long-term disability health are also eligible.
Good. And the only other thing from the literature that I saw that I have an issue with, do you foresee this position working under you? Because from what I read, that you said it wanted to be managed by the Energy Committee, and I would not support that.
That would be a natural extension, but we want to make sure that it is under a person. It would probably be under me. I've done this same thing before. We had a very strong Green Communities grant. Our first step was to buy an electric vehicle for the water department to do water meter reading and the downtown streetlights. We wanted to be visible, so that on the side of that car that visited almost every house, we said, this is who we are in energy. Then we went into the schools and we did sort of a system that thermostat, a highly computerized thermostat system that managed the buildings during vacations and everything else, because they were really, the thermostat system wasn't really very efficient. So we went after things that were of the conservation ilk right away to prove that we could lower, things, and that's what we want to do.
We've been working on these conservation things, and I've said it before, for about 10 years, and every year our energy bill goes up. So if this person can do it, I think it's great. I read in the memo that it was managed, and I might have been reading into that too much, by the Energy Committee, and I just think in terms of generalization, no employees should be managed by volunteers. They should be managed under somebody as
yeah.
staff, so.
No, you're right. And in fact, my point was that what we don't want them to do is to be, over here helping departments do things, over here with the Energy Committee. I mean, we got to set the sort of time allocation and the goals within the context of the grant, of course, and then work with all those entities within the context of that approach.
So what happens, what is our responsibility at the end of 3 years if we find that it's not self-fulfilling? They would then be laid off, or how would that happen?
It'd be up to the budget process to determine how to fund it or move forward without it. So
An employment contract that goes in from the
not that
beginning?
I'm aware of. They would be a town employee, not a specific contract. I haven't seen anything in the paperwork that says there's a specific contract. Usually by the time you got there, the person that I had, we didn't have a grant, and within 2 years they were paying for themselves, just by virtue of swapping out a Econoline van that got 8 miles to the gallon for water meter reading to a fully electric vehicle. That and the streetlights in the downtown helped us get there.
Would there be an understanding to the employee that potentially they could be temporary if the monies runs out and they have not come up with enough monies to continue?
Usually when you post this, you would post it and tell them it's soft money or grant money, and it's not town money, and it is a fixed time frame.
Madam Chair? I have a question. I think this is a great proposal, but it works provided this individual is under the supervision of the town administrator's office. That's the only way this is going to work. Because what it needs is, this person is going to need the support, the direction, and the cooperation from a host of individuals, and the only way that can really come together is if this person is directed either by you or by the town administrator. So I'm happy to endorse it, but I want to make sure that it's very clear that we expect that this person is going to work directly under the town administrator, under the supervision of the town administrator's office.
If I may, I think that your point is well taken from the crossover perspective that the state wants us to really look at schools, and I think that only happens from the town administrator's office to the superintendents, that you can't sort of go in at a lower level and make changes or help out the schools,
So if that's the understanding, then I'm prepared to enthusiastically vote for this.
So this would not in any way be a regional school district employee? This would be a town of Yarmouth
to
employee?
be a town employee, and but the grant heavily relies on an interaction with the school department. Given they're the largest facilities and users, that would make sense. But if it's a DY situation, we need to figure out the proportionate share of those services.
Well, I think after the 3 years that's important. We may have to come up with an MOU to.
Right. We might need that as we start. because,
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
we wouldn't evaluate 66% of the building kind of thing.
I just know that the town of Barnstable has this position, and this individual was able to secure $42 million in funding to do a very important microgrid project. So my hope is that Yarmouth will be in a position where it can be thinking big picture and to sort of act in that kind of capacity, to do something big that involves both the town and the school system, the school department. I was very excited to see that come together. And, you know, I'm not open to, you know, I'm very open to the idea of an individual. I mean, I know we're talking right now about this individual working for us and working with the school, but, you know, I mean, I think my hope is that, you know, we'll take an open mind in terms of how we do this, whatever works best to accomplish the job.
To the superintendent's credit, he provided a good letter, and they have sort of an energy program there, so it wouldn't be a hard segue to go over there, because they already have some goals in that regard.
Oh, that's good. And do you think they're going to be comfortable with working with someone that's sort of positioned in the town administrator's office? Do you think that'll work?
I think that you have to do the energy management plan, and in doing that, you're going to interact at the data side for the schools, and then you come out of that and you say, what is the best, most effective fix? And then we work with them on the capital plan anyway, so it's a good sort of connection between the energy manager and the capital plan. So yeah, I think that superintendent, his letter was clear in the sense that they would like a person to take a look at these things.
Great, thank you.
Any other discussion? Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll move that we endorse and approve the submission of this grant proposal as presented to us in the memo prepared by the town administrator, and that we authorize the chair to execute a letter on behalf of the full board expressing our full support.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Could I just say, I think with an energy manager in place, we will be able to get some of those utility bills down. I mean, especially with HVAC, you know, you have smart systems, you have controllers, and I think that will be a savings right there, even before the grant writing. And it will be very helpful to have someone in this slot who hears about grants early and is able to give a chunk of his time to applying for them.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? No one opposed? We all in favor? Thank you very much. We'll put that letter together. Okay. We are now at our first review of the draft annual town meeting warrant.
I thought I'd walk through the articles and just explain where we are with the warrant, what new articles that we have, and no decisions are required this evening. This is our first draft, but, we've got it together. And in the packet, obviously, it starts with the items that are shaded. Those required, like the insert the new numbers on the budget, for instance, and the Finance Committee report for this year, but the structure is coming through. The Finance Committee report will be available, I think, in the next couple of weeks. And we have the general sections, and it starts off on page 5 of the warrant document. We have Article 1, which are shortfalls in the existing budget. As of today, we don't have any, but if it keeps snowing, obviously we're going to have a snow and ice deficit in here. And that's really the only thing I'm looking at hard now. But what we'll do between draft 1 and draft 2 is insert if there's any potential shortfalls in the budget that need to be addressed. And that's a standard article that we include in there. And obviously you see shaded, the municipal budget is Article 2. So insert the omnibus municipal budget. And again, we have the proposed budget now. The Finance Committee is continuing their review, and we hope by draft 2, what we'll do is take all of the recommendations from the Finance Committee and then place those in Article 2 as the overall budget. So that continues to be shaded, showing the FY25 numbers. But I think the Finance Committee is just about done with their budget review. They'll be formulating their recommendations, and they're coming in. We'll see on the upcoming agenda. We're going to have a public hearing with them. I think it's either the next meeting or the meeting after that. And so that's Article 2. And then it moves in when you get to page 12 is Article 3. Now, what we've done is we have an amount for an override for the fire department to do the new positions added and the restructure of salaries. And we're hoping to take that item out of the budget and put it under a separate article so that it can be highlighted, the amount, and appropriate it subject to the passage of the override. So that way you have a mechanism, in the unlikely event that the override doesn't pass, that the budget stays the budget, and then the numbers in Article 3 would be what would be subject. So that's the way we've structured it, working with the finance director, and it's got that amount, I think needs to be updated. It's just was our original draft. So that's Article 3. And then from there, we get into the standard enterprise fund articles, which are not a part of the omnibus. So Article 4 would be the golf enterprise budget. And it's, with all of these, it's the similar situation. They're shaded right now, but.
We have updated retained earnings, right? 2024?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be as of the date when we get these recommendations in, so.
They're on most of them, they're all 2024 instead of 20, yeah.
Right, so when we put the updates, we're going to update all of the retained earnings. And so we have Article 4, and then we have Article 5 is the water division budget, not an enterprise, but it's a special revenue. And I think the same applies there, that they even have a 2023, and you see that shaded as well.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at before.
And so those numbers all need to be updated. And septage enterprise is Article 6. And so those numbers will be pending. And then Article 7, we move into the wastewater operating budget, and we'll have the new numbers there. Article 8 is the cable television communications budget. And Article 9, on page 16 now, that's where the Dennis Yarmouth Regional School District budget falls in, and we're still waiting for the Finance Committee recommendation on that as well. And Article 10 is Cape Cod Regional Technical High School District budget. So that's in there. And then we have the recommendations on the capital, so those aren't shaded. These are the amounts for FY '26. Article 11 is the golf capital expense that totals $245,000. And Article 12 is the equalization tank rehabilitation for the septage facility, and that is a borrowing authorization, $4.4 million. That was an item we discussed with Director Colby last time. It's the tank that it is under highly toxic and corrosive conditions, so the concrete is actually eaten away on those tanks. So that's to keep the septic facility operating. And then we get to Article 13 is the Water Division capital expenses totaling $1.312 million.
Hold on one second. How is the equalization tank being paid for?
That's a bonding. So they'll borrow those funds and they'll pay for it over time from the receipts. It'll come out of the receipts from the septage in the enterprise fund. So
That might need to be clarified a little bit in the explanation. It says it up top that it's a borrowing, but it doesn't say that it's going to be paid for through.
maybe we'll have to have that explanation a little clearer. Excuse me, just writing a note on that. Okay, and that brings us to Article 13 is the Water Division capital expenses and the normal expenses, and again, the account balance is still shaded there, so that has to be updated. And in addition to the normal Water Division capital expense, there's a new article for, and we talked about this last week too, the PFAS treatment system for wells number 10 and 11, and that is in the amount of $5,050,000 supported by funds under the SRF program.
Say that.
So that's Article 14. I'm on page 18.
Oh, I'm reading it. I'm just trying to figure out how anybody would know how we're, so it says borrow transfer from available funds.
I think we should maybe add on that one a clarification of where the funds are coming from and where they're going to be paid for from. It's a good point that you make. You had a note on that. And again, this is going to be paid for from water receipts. Thank you. And then on Article 15 is Route 28 water main improvements, $2 million, another borrowing authorization.
I think the same thing, you need to make it a little clearer in the explanation.
Yes, on all of these borrowings.
So how is, we're borrowing it and then paying it within the levy on?
No, that's going to be through enterprise fund.
From the water department receipts.
Okay.
So we'll clarify all of these borrowings. And again, that's a two-thirds vote. Each one of those borrowing articles is a two-thirds vote. And then we move into Article 16 is the police cruiser leases. And it's the lease-to-own program. And because that's a borrowing, that's also 2/3. Then Article 17 on page 20 brings us into the fire department capital expense. And they also have it split in their normal expenses, and they have a borrowing authorization of $2 million for the new quint pumper, and this is billed as a replacement for the ladder truck. Transition to 4 engines and 2 quint. It's a ladder engine combination over the next 5 years. So that's explained, and I think they'll have more information on that. And that's a project they've been working for these past months with the Capital Improvement Committee on. And so that gets us over the hump on that ladder truck. And that's Article 18. And on Article 19 is the omnibus capital account, and that is in the amount of $3,072,837 of free cash, plus we also have the $1.1 million as part of the town's tax levy. That was the override that we've reintroduced under the tax levy for roadway improvements. So that is retained in there as well, so.
Bob, I think the 3 million is the last year's number. The total is at the end of the table for this coming year.
All right, it's 3,580,139. I see it, it is shaded, yes, indeed. So it's 3,580,139. 3,580,139. So that's the omnibus capital article. And then on page 22, we move into Article 20, is an Eversource easement for electrical work at should be at the Water Resource Recovery Facility. So that's the wastewater plant needs the Eversource easement that we knew was coming. And then Article 21 moves into the community preservation series of articles. First is 21 is establishes the reserves. It's a standard article. And then the projects kick in Article 22 is the CPA affordable housing projects. And those are explained. Article 23 is the recreation projects, and we do have the Station Avenue Elementary Playground that's back, that was postponed from last year. Chase Brook Park Master Plan and site improvements. So that's going to move forward, that important park project. I know it's been many years in the making. And Article 24 is the CPA Historical Preservation Projects. And this is interesting. It ties into, we'll discuss a little bit later, the select board goals that we have, the interpretive historical signage, the Revolutionary War Monument, the ancient cemetery grave markers, and these elements to help bring to life the historic Yarmouth initiative that was started by the select board in your goals. So it's great to see, the goals move right through into the historical preservation projects.
Can I stop you 1 second there, Bob? An elevator qualifies as being under historic?
In the cultural center, it's a historic building, so it qualifies. Yes. Okay, and that's Article 24. Article 25 is the open space reserve, and this establishes the set aside that is 10%, which is required. And Article 26 is a housekeeping item that transfers $33,587 from land bank legal expense to the community preservation reserve fund, so open space reserve fund. So that's a positive step there. And Article 27, we move into the Tourism Revenue Preservation Fund. And that follows on page 27, total appropriation, $520,000, broken down by the categories. And take a peek at Article 28, the Town Common Feasibility Study, that I prepared a draft article based on the discussion from the previous meeting. It's a draft, and but I tried to include an explanation that really provides some context for at least the warrant. So if there's any amendments, we can make those. So, but I wanted to have a nice article and an explanation there so you could see it. That's Article 28. Article 29 is a property disposition at 0 Oak Bluffs Road. Now, this is a prior project of the Select Board through the Property Disposition Committee that was actually done a number of years ago. It sort of predates me here. And it's a very small sliver of property that's unbuildable that was decided by the board and the committee that it was surplus, and so it was put out to bid, and the neighbor put the winning bid in on it, which was $5,000. It was kind of a nominal amount. And then apparently what had happened was that the neighbor had a very serious car accident and was unable to kind of follow through with the work that was required to, I guess, didn't answer a letter and things like this. And then she got better, and then, and hired an attorney that contacted the town to see if she could finish the transaction. And so we looked at it, reviewed it with town council, and town council reported that it needs an article to authorize, but, it has been bid and everything. And so if we want to move forward with it as originally bid, that, it certainly can be done. And so where it's an unbuildable lot that is completely surplus and it's going to the neighbor, which will ultimately, hopefully, wind up in more taxes to the town, I think it's probably a good thing to move forward. Other than that, we're still stuck with the sliver of property and the neighbor gets nothing. And so it seems that it has had a tremendous amount of due diligence, and it only stalled because of, I won't say tragic events, but certainly unfortunate events. So that's what Article 29 is. So
You need to,
The
you need the explanation is for the town common underneath it. You
Yeah, we need to
take that out.
clarify that.
that's not the right explanation. I mean, come on.
I'm assuming, Bob, that town council is recommending that we take this action
Yeah.
in order to finalize the deal, so we need to make that done.
Yeah, I'll do a nice explanation on that. I think there was one, but it got accidentally copied over, and so apologize for that. And that's the property disposition at 0 Oak Bluffs Road, and it was, I will say, kind of comforting for me to see a piece of paper that said Oak Bluffs on it after all this time. I sort of miss the island and the nice people out there, so. Now, a couple of things I want to talk about quickly is I still need to get a report from our finance director on whether we need an article to put more maintenance costs in the Matakees. We funded that 2 years in a row, and we haven't spent all the money. And I think there's enough left in there. We may be able to get away without having an additional appropriation to the Matakees building maintenance costs. But I just need to.
So at the moment, this is a
get that
placeholder.
confirmed. So it's a placeholder, but I hope to see it go.
What's our
And-
insurance costing on that? That's got to be,
No, the building's not, it's the insured's cheap because the building's not insured. It's insured for liability, but it's not insured for fire. They refused to insure it. And then there was something like $500,000 they were going to charge us. And so that's one of the reasons why we're going to get this study moving forward, that it's insured for, because we use the building for the, for the recreation and things, so we're insured for any liability, but it doesn't have, property damage insurance. So, and then, let's see,
Wastewater?
we did just do wastewater pre-financing article under this year's free cash, so I don't think we need to do another one, but I do want to just, double check with the finance director, make sure. We'll maybe do another one in the fall for the next year, but this would be the second pre-funding article. It depends how aggressive that we want to get with that, but I'll have a recommendation at the next meeting for you, but I did want to flag it, that we have been doing that. And there's another article that we usually put in for collective bargaining settlements that aren't settled yet. That's kind of a housekeeping item, so that might show up in the second draft as well. And now, those are all of the articles that we had by the deadline for submitting articles. I had another article I wanted to call your attention to. It's in your packet, but it's not included in the draft. And the reason for that is that it was submitted after the deadline to submit articles, so it doesn't go on it. And plus, it's a request from one of our collective bargaining groups, and it may require some additional discussion, but I wanted to make everyone aware of it. I know it's been a subject of discussion that ever since the new police officer safety and training, the post committee was established by law, it provided a certification process for all of our police officers. Now, this police officer certification process, through this new legislation, also extends to the Department of Natural Resources officers, that they are now required to be certified by post and certified as police officers, which means they are subject to the full police academy they have to attend, and they also have to undergo the firearms safety training, which we have initiated, as you recall, a memorandum of agreement with the police department, Yarmouth Police Department, to oversee the firearms safety training and certification for the natural resources officer in the DNR. And in addition, they've all been forced to go to the academy, so they're all academy trained now. There's, I think, 4 of them. And so they're saying is that in light of the fact that we are certified police officers and we have the firearms and the training, that they would like to be included into Group 4 for retirement, which is the group that includes police officers, which is not the group they're in now. They're in Group 1, which is more the administrative people. And I know that this is an issue that's been discussed by this board, many times previously. What they've done is that they feel that where the law changed, the requirements changed, they felt that it should be looked at again. So they submitted the article, and in addition to the article, they've submitted an actuarial analysis that they've had performed by a competent company that does these, and I think that this was done through their statewide agency. We just received this, and so we haven't seen the retirement board hasn't reviewed it and commented on it, so it wouldn't be considered final. So at any rate, I wanted to make you aware of that and maybe get some direction on how you felt we should handle it. Maybe I think it may require more discussion than is possible prior to this town meeting, but I did want you to know we had an article on it.
That would be my concern, that there wouldn't be enough time before this town meeting. I mean, we're already into the reading of the warrant.
We can put a placeholder there, right? Or what should, I can tell you my opinion on it. This goes back for years. I voted against the process that happened because they weren't trained to the same level. But this community and this board authorized that. Now they're trained to the same level as the police officers, carry weapons, and I don't know why they would be treated differently at this point. I think it's a road we went down. It's a road we went down this, I mean, this was a discussion a long time ago, but, you know, they didn't have the same training. They didn't go to the academy. They didn't have the same, now they have all the same, everything as the police, so to me, I think it makes sense.
Are their salaries the same?
The salaries, it's their benefits. It's their retirement
It's a little
benefits.
different. Yeah, the retirement benefits are different. The salaries are a little different. But, you know, it's kind of tough. We're in a tough spot here because the DNR department and officers, I mean, this is on Cape Cod.
There's only us in Falmouth,
Our
right?
community, yeah. There's not many of these in the Commonwealth. It's a unique situation. There's a handful that are organized this strongly and fall under post. So it's the state sort of let us down. They created this whole apparatus under this legislation to require them to have the same training as a police officer, but because there's not a hue and cry from across the Commonwealth, just this handful of communities, they haven't changed their retirement laws. That's why, you know, in all seriousness, this should be a part of that state law, right, that sets what police come under. They should have put these guys under that, but because they haven't, because there's so few of these, it comes back to the town, and everybody says, well, the town has to approve it.
But let me make sure I also understand, Bob, that this still requires state legislation, too. Doesn't it require a home rule petition?
No, see, that's the thing.
It does not.
There's two ways you could get it done. Let's see.
So I think in the interest of time, I'm happy with making this a placeholder in the warrant and then putting it on an agenda for an agenda item with a full board discussion, rather than having this discussion now.
You know,
Since we
I
didn't
think
post it.
I'd recommend that what you do is that, I don't think that there's enough time to adequately set this up for this spring, but if we had the discussion, did the due diligence, made sure we knew exactly all of the ins and outs, and that the retirement board, what they're looking for, what everyone's looking for, it may very well be that we could put it in a situation that a future town meeting could look at it, maybe in the fall or something, but have all the answers done and not feel like it's like a push.
No, I would agree. I don't want to rush into this. I want to make sure that, particularly for the new members that haven't had the opportunity to go through this, and we've spent a lot, as Tracy said, we spent a lot of time on this. Whether we put it as a placeholder for this town meeting or keep it as a placeholder for the fall town meeting, either way, I do see it worth as a future agenda item and discussion for some town meeting consideration, you know, either the spring or the fall. I think it's just a question of figuring out, as we look at our upcoming agendas and meetings, where we can have the time to slide it in. And obviously, this requires prep time, you know, and a lot of work. And the question is are we going to be able to do it in sufficient time to get ready for this town meeting? Sometimes it's best just to focus on getting our ducks in line for this town meeting and then teeing up for consideration for the fall. My question for you is that this is coming to you. Was there any request with this for this? I'm assuming it's coming from the Natural Resources Department. Were they coming, asking for action or consideration as an article?
Yeah, no, they know,
Spring?
they know they need an article. In a perfect world for them, they'd have it right away. But I honestly think that if the board was open to giving them kind of some fair consideration and maybe working to kind of solve the problem, if it didn't happen this spring, but they were in discussions with the board and felt like, you know, I think that they felt like previously that they've just been sort of foreclosed from it. I think that they'd be satisfied to have, you know, an open discussion of it. And, you know, we could say that, look, it didn't, you know, the timing just doesn't work for this town meeting because it was filed so late. But, you know, I think they'd understand if we were open to discussing it with them.
That's my concern. You know, this is people's livelihood, so I don't want to rush into it. I mean, I certainly want to talk about it, but I don't know that we'd have enough time to get it done for spring. But if not, I certainly would want to see it on for the fall. and that we do due consideration before that to be able to do that. I mean, this is people's livelihoods, so.
Well, people livelihood, the problem is if something happens to one of them now, they're not gonna get the same benefits if we hold off as if they were a police officer, that's all. And, I mean, you just received that surprises me. Interesting.
Yeah, I honestly, I knew they were working on it before, but I didn't think that they were coming in with it now, but it was like more than a month late. I mean, it wasn't like they missed the deadline by a tiny bit. And I think what had happened was that they were working on trying to get the actuarial work done, and it just, took a long time.
I'd like to see it as a placeholder. Personally, I'd like to see it as a placeholder for the fall. But I leave that up to my fellow board members, how they feel on it.
Well, I'm fine keeping it as a placeholder for the spring, and if we don't have enough time, then we do it with the understanding that, we can put it off to the fall. We've done that before.
We have?
Yeah.
Okay.
Placeholder, we can take it off, we just
Yeah, we
can't
can
add
take it off.
once it's closed.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, sure. I'd be okay
Yeah.
with that.
So we're going to get to a point where we have to make a decision.
fine.
Yeah, Madam Chair, we're going to have to get to a point where we're going to make a decision on a final warrant, and if we don't feel that we have the information that we need to make an intelligent
Right.
recommendation, then we can just put it off to the next one. But I think it would be helpful, particularly for these employees, to know that we're seriously interested in entertaining their proposal, whether it's for the spring or the fall, and leave it at that.
Okay.
Okay, and that's all I have for the first review of the draft town meeting warrant.
Okay, then we go back to our item of review select board goals.
Let's see. Chart so that we can put this up on the screen. This might be a really great interest for the public.
Just as a note back to the warrant, I'm meeting with the chair of the CIP, and what we do, Capital Budget Committee, is align the warrant to the capital plan so that when we present it with the budget, that there's alignment and we don't have a warrant that's separate from the capital plan.
Thank you.
It seems so long ago, that meeting in Simpkin School.
Seems like ages ago.
Temperature certainly was different. From the summer to the winter.
Bill, you can do this.
What about the mouse? Does the mouse work?
Yeah, the mouse works too.
You use a rollerball. There you go.
I think this is great because it's the first time we've really taken the select board's goals that we established at that last session and done a review of those for the public, so everyone knows what the highest priorities of the town are and what we're doing to kind of address those. I thought probably the best way to start it is if I could just sort of walk through a little bit what the key goals are, and then we could talk a little bit about where those stand in terms of, what our progress is and get comments and things from the board. But what folks should know is that one of the key things that the select board does is every single year, in recent years, we've been planning it's kind of a day-long retreat that we get out of the town hall. We've been going over to the Simpkins Auditorium, which is a very inspiring place because of the history of that in the community, and working with a facilitator to just have select board members establish, the key goals of the town for the upcoming year. And I just want to say personally, it is, for me, the most valuable tool out of all of the things that we do is that we use these goals to really inspire and organize all of the town departments in terms of having our mission, what we're here to do. And I just want to say that the departments, have been fabulous. They rely on this information, and everyone, the boards and committees that we've talked to, are really hungry for it, that, they look, to the select board for direction on establishing the highest priorities in the town, and it's easy to, go through and inventory everything we could possibly be working on, but the hard part in terms of focusing on, these are the key things, in this year that need to be accomplished, that we need to move forward, and I really salute the select board for your efforts at doing this, and it certainly makes my job a lot easier in terms of just focusing people on what direction that we need to go, and everyone is on board, and for the highest priority goals, the first one that we have is to initiate an update of the comprehensive plan and develop a cohesive economic development vision that embraces the historic, cultural, and recreational assets of our community, as well as healthcare opportunities and demographic patterns. And the board has additionally pointed out some key areas of focus that the town needs to pay attention to in implementing this goal. And I think on the update of the comprehensive plan that the board was happy to see the positive movement on a project that's been long delayed. And I honestly think, we've made, we've had some meetings on this. There was just last week another community visioning session. And I feel very strongly that it was the select board's goals. This has been our goal now for 2 years, that have, really provided that inspiration for the planning board, the planning department, to make this their top priority. And, we have the consultant in place. We've got the process moving forward. And, it's going to be key to make sure all of these issues, such as the public engagement and the involvement, I know they have a full engagement plan, and to be able to get regular updates on the direction that they're going. We also have the Route 28 Economic Corridor Analysis that is programmed, and Bill, I'm not going to go through it right now, has a very detailed memo of all of the stakeholders that have a piece of the economic corridor analysis and how that shapes into the town's improvement in the infrastructure that's out there now. So we've made the Route 28 analysis a top priority of the comprehensive plan, and we're working closely with the planning department on that now.
So is it okay just to stop on this one for a moment?
Sure.
Because, when we talked about this a while ago, there was some work that's actually been done or was planned to be done. What exactly has actually happened on this particular item, number 2? Because I know, Bill, you've received some funds from, what was it, the Community Economic Development Committee, and that.
The package that we brought to them had the DIF in it, and that was our primary focus, and we completed the DIF work. And in doing that, we did some analysis on development suitability. The advantage we have now is we have a mixed-use analysis grant that we received, which is through the Livable Communities, never can remember their acronym, we have $100,000. So what we're going to do is meld the mixed-use study in with the market analysis. The market analysis is sort of purely tabular in the sense that what it does is determine the uses that would survive here well, in terms of meets the market demands. I think one of the things we need to struggle with is, are those the uses, or do you want to diversify that? And how do those more diverse uses that gives you a longer season last? So after setting up MUC, I'm going to meet with CDC and finalize the scope and then move ahead and then seek their funding for that scope. But the other study is moving forward. There's also obviously the LCP that is looking at the corridor, the streetscape project. There's a wayfinding analysis and then periodic zoning changes. So What we're trying to do is not do these things in isolation. Through the muck process, we're getting everybody together, but the market study needs to take into account that there is a mixed-use housing and commercial study, and that there are other studies. So in March, I made a commitment to go back to CEDC and give them the scope, and then have them start that project in concert with the other ones.
Right. Yeah, I think from my point of view, this is an incredibly important component of our long-term planning. And I think when we talk about it, we need to sort of note the things that we've already done and that are already going on. I know we had that Urban Institute group come in, remember that land study, that land analysis, do you remember that, Tracy? We had the,
They indicated that there's $100 million
Yeah.
of pent-up private
Right,
investment
right.
in economic
Do-
development in that
So-
downtown
yeah,
corridor.
so-
That it's being held up because of the lack of the public infrastructure that we're putting in now.
So they focused on Route 28. So I think one of the things that we're going to have to do as we revisit this is make sure we take adequate note of a number of studies and analysis that have done. The other one is clearly the Donahue Institute did some economic.
That was the one you're talking about, the 100,000.
Yeah.
No, I'm not talking. I'm mentioning that, but there was another one done. We had an outside panel of people that came in, Urban Land Institute or something.
Oh,
Remember that,
ULI,
Tracy?
yeah.
So many.
Yes. So we've had, I mean, I've got literally, I'd love to say on my shelf, but I can't. It's in my computer, but I have a long list of studies that have been done
Right.
looking at the Route 28 corridor, and they all have some value even today. So I think in some respects, before we can utilize them and build off of them rather than let them sit on a shelf somewhere.
So we need the bibliography before we start the thesis.
All I'm saying is that as we approach this task, let's keep in mind all the other studies that have been done that the town has spent money on that actually, I believe, have some application today. The economic study that I'm talking about with Donahue Institute, that looked at the economic ripple effects of wastewater investment along Route 28.
Right.
And gave us at least some idea of potential and opportunity there. So I think to some degree, as we go down this road and begin to refine this, my hope is that we can confidently say to the people, is that we've taken all these studies, we've looked at them, and that this vision reflects, some of the work that has been done in recent years to help us understand how to strengthen this particular corridor. The other thing that we can't forget is the fact that, we all had questions about the design of Route 28 and some of the reconstruction work, but the bottom line is let's, at the end of the day, assuming that we're 100% comfortable with the design, that will be making a significant improvement in that corridor as well. So overall, in looking at the Route 28 corridor, the level of public investment in this area is going to be significant at the end of the day. And we've done a number of studies that really showcase some of the potential upside. So all I'm saying is as we refine this corridor analysis and begin to shape a vision for this, I think all of those studies, all those analysis, all that work needs to be sort of drawn upon to help make sure that we're making a more accurate picture of what.
I think I agree with you to the extent of pulling from some of those past studies, because not a lot of those things change that much, unfortunately, in terms of some of the economic assets. But I think it's important to look at a broad perspective in the sense that economic analysis is one thing, the streetscape is another, so then land use planning is another. So we need to figure out at the end, we don't launch, 5 different rockets in the air and try to figure out what it all means. That we get the economic analysis done, but we understand how it's a component of something else, and something else is a component of it.
But if you want to pull all the rockets together, you got to get your arms around the rockets.
Right.
You literally got to pull them together.
Right.
Can I ask what the status is of our economic development person?
It's very interesting that you asked that, because we're continuing to recruit for that position. In fact,
For a year.
Yeah, and it's been impossible to find the right person, but we have our eye on a person that has an extensive background in economic development and planning that would fit right in with our organization and would be able to help us with this project specifically. And we're still, just in the interview process, but we hope to be back in front of you, before long with some recommendations on how to kind of increase our staffing in this area so that we can better manage this specific
Bill
thing.
can't do it. I mean, there's a lot going on. You need somebody to help.
So I
Do you have
agree.
any idea of an ideal timetable that we're aiming for with Route 28 development? I truly don't know.
It really depends. When I did the research for the diff, a lot of people said, when I see the backhoe in front doing the tie-in, I'll talk to my banker about the investment. So some people are waiting for that sewer to be able to say, okay, now I can leverage, going to the bank because I can do certain things on my site. There's some concern about the overall permitting and how it works through the county for such a massive amount of potential that exists along the corridor and sort of who's on first. So the diff was very, very, very conservative based on conversations I have because people didn't want to come to the front and say, I'm willing to do this. And put that out there and just to have it hang on until connections happen. So a lot of times when infrastructure is the driver, you won't see development until infrastructure has moved along. If this were like a traffic issue, like an intersection, that's a little bit easier. Developers will start working on their project before the traffic lights are up and things like that. But infrastructure that's sewer, that has sort of a multiplier to it and allows you to use more of the site, that usually developers will wait to see the results of that. Sometimes you'll see, a lot of applications, but all depends on the economy too, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
So great, and some of the other areas of focus I think are just great. The, Select Board called out that they want to have strong direction on moving this forward. In other words, we're not taking no for an answer, and so it's very much appreciated to have that strong direction. It's exactly what we're doing, and I think that the progress is measurable, and we're going to have that comprehensive plan in place probably next year. So it doesn't include some benchmarking from similar communities and a multi-generational focus in our community that is an age-friendly community, one of the first ones in the Commonwealth, I might add. And when the plan comes into better focus, the zoning is going to be a critical aspect of it. And one of the areas of focus is going to be to explore zoning in the hospital area for year-round medical and scientific employment. That is one of our areas of focus under this goal. So that's going to be a key piece of the zoning analysis. And there's an additional area of focus to streamline permitting for small businesses and see what assistance that we can provide. And I think that's one of the areas we haven't made a lot of progress in. So, it's wide open to see what can be done for streamlining permitting for small businesses. We have a lot of problems from time to time with small businesses dealing with a lot of the requirements that we have, and some assistance would, I think, be very helpful. And the eighth area of focus under the update of the comprehensive plan, we talked about this a little bit earlier under the town meeting warrant, but I think everyone's delighted to see the Select Board's focus on a historic Yarmouth initiative to emphasize the local historic resources of our community, which are very often just overlooked. And it was amazing when we had those meetings with the Historical Commission and talked about the percentage of the local residents that were specifically involved in the Revolutionary War. It's amazing. This is one of the most historic communities in our nation. And the Select Board has identified that this historic Yarmouth initiative and pointed out some possible ideas for making it a major focus of our planning. Tourism is the possible application, one of those iPhone apps, as a gateway for the location and information of all of our historic resources, to identifying, preserving, and protecting our local historic resources, having interpretation and signage at key locations, and promoting events and education. And as you could see, working through our historical commission and the community development department and the funding sources, we've got projects on each one of these lined up in the community preservation program under the historic resources section. And I think, to me, it's most intriguing to have learned so much about the Revolutionary War items and to have that new memorial in town, and also the interpretive signage program for some of the key locations. I think it's a great start, and it's nice to see this progress, and hopefully this is going to grow from here. And so I just salute those efforts, and I hope to see us make some real progress here. And right now, I know the bids are already in. They're being evaluated for the Revolutionary War Monument. Funding is being put into place. The Select Board selected the location up in Yarmouthport for that. So that to me is just wonderful to see that progress.
There's a lot of feel-good stuff about the history this year.
Very much so.
So that's goal one. I hope I'm not taking too much time going through these, but a fascinating goal. And goal two, and again, these are all the high priorities, so it's not like a lesser priority, but the highest priority goals included. Goal two is to adopt a broad vision for water quality protection in our town, including the ponds, lakes, streams, estuaries, and embayments, and which focuses on public water supply protection and wastewater treatment capacity to move forward with the development of a public wastewater treatment system. And the area of focus, obviously, is the implementation of the Phase 1 wastewater program, which, that has become the town's #1 mission in life. And I'll tell you honestly, I've never started one from scratch to jump into Phase 1 with the plant and the system all at once. And what a massive project that turned out to be a lot more complicated, I think, than even we thought, with all of the planning work that went into it. And but it is great to see the progress that's being made on that, and to see some of the pictures that now that wastewater treatment facility is literally under construction. The funding's in place, and the Select Board wanted to see a holistic approach to water quality, which I'm proud to say I think that's what we're really geared toward doing. And I think that this really turns out to be the #1 priority out of anything. It's the most complicated and the most important, and we've made tremendous strides in the water system as well. And it's not just the modernization with the replacement of all the mains, the refurbishment that we reported last week that was just completed on all of the pump stations, but the emerging contaminants that we face now with PFAS. It's horrifying to see the possible impacts of some of these chemicals. And so to see the PFAS treatment moving forward at the same time as wastewater, at the same time as the modernization of the water system and the protection that's going on. And we also have, and we're going to talk about it a little bit, an upcoming meeting we're trying to set up on non-water supply PFAS related concerns that harm environmentally what's going on. And I know that we have that new consultant that's been placed on board. It was approved. The Board of Selectmen recommended it, brought it to town meeting, and we've put that contract into place. And the Select Board wanted to keep in a strong policy focus to oversee, as the commissioners, all of the progress. And I think that's another thing we've done with the regular updates. And we just had one at the last meeting from the DPW in terms of the challenges that we face and the progress that we're making, regular updates for the board. And the item 6 is the advocacy role for the town for state and federal funding, which, we really need to do a lot more, that especially now with federal funding in many respects being held up and challenged and uncertain, we need to make sure that our advocacy for this water quality infrastructure is ramped up. And I think if there's any area that we can improve in, it's right there. So the holistic approach to water quality protection of our town is really, that's been the key goal that everyone's working on. And the third major goal is the development of a communications plan for increased civic engagement that addresses town, cable television, production capabilities, all social media, and other means for reaching out to local residents regarding important topics of public discussion. And I think we've made a tremendous amount of progress there, and by establishing that strategic vision with our new communications team, we just had a recent update, and from that, we're trying to develop more goals and deliverables to bring back to the board. And that's a process that, we're really in the infancy of having a comprehensive approach to the communications, but more and more, we're developing standardized formats and better consistency across all of our townwide messaging. We've got new programs coming up every day and ways to improve communications. I think it's an ongoing process, but it's one that, we're involved in, the select board is involved personally with, and we hope to just continue evolving forward in that communications and to continue to make it a big priority of the town. And there's never, ever going to stop being room for improvement and evolution on the communications. And so I think it's important to have those resources in our community that we can call on and demand on to do that. And so I think, we really need to continue that strong focus and be back in front of you and, get criticized and improve and keep it moving forward. And I do want to say our communications team has done a great job, and they're really making new suggestions all the time. And I think we're lucky to have some talented people we've been able to recruit to do that. So I think the communications is an ongoing project that, we hope to see continue to improve. And the fourth major goal was to explore the reuse and/or redevelopment of the Mattokeys Middle School property. And that obviously, with the board's leadership, has become another major effort of the town. And I really need to kind of single out Bill a little bit for his work with the Mattokeys Utilization Committee that you established. So it's great to see, all of this came from the select board. The idea to make this a priority, the idea to create a committee, create a process, and we've made some great progress here. And I know that I personally have participated in a leadership role, and I know Mark has as well, with the housing team. We've pulled together all of the housing stakeholders and advocates in our entire community, and we've conducted brainstorming sessions, we've identified ideas, and so we've loaded up the utilization committee with a lot of ideas. And I know that people are doing that for recreation, for the
Economic
education
development,
team, economic development. There's so much happening there, and that project has been, I think, so talk about tying something to a rocket. I think somebody tied the muck to a rocket, and it's moving.
Actually,
And some of the
Yep, we invent the names.
yes.
the muck.
It's not running amok.
Never thought we'd have a muck, but we do.
We're running amok.
And the areas of focus in which, I really appreciated the selectmen drilled down. Before we even started this process, they wanted to see that a committee take an approach with consultants engaged, doing a detailed analysis of the building conditions, which has been completed. use a process to attract utilization proposals, which, is in progress, and evaluate community needs and overall town building needs. And I'm just fascinated to see what the results are going to be.
Well, the analysis of the building is complete. We just had, we sent it to building. They suggested a few edits for the code, so that we're probably going to be posting very soon, and we'll send it to the board as a packet item with a cover letter to the town administrator. The RFP process happens later after each of the teams, that is, committees appointed to focus on a certain issue, like CEDC, working with the chamber and things like that. They'll come back with proposals, and then we'll send them an RFP. The RFP for the consultants went out, and we have 2 proposals, and we're about to select somebody for the main consultant who will start in probably in March, after we see some work coming back from these teams. And the advantage, I think, of the teams is you're getting a cross-pollination of ideas eventually from each group that is responsible for that topic in the community. And we hope then that we do that. If we do that, then we don't have to spend money on a consultant to basically sit in the room and put dots on a wall and things like that.
So thank you, Bill, for all of the energy that you've given to this Matakees Middle School project. It's quite a project, and it's just nice to see the progress on what the selectmen had asked for. And the next key item, the 5th high priority goal, was to promote staff retention efforts in our town government. And the areas of focus were to retain positive working conditions and also continue to maintain competitive wages and benefits. And the progress we've made there is we've funded a full analysis of the wages and wage structures in our community, and it's a study that's ongoing right now to ensure that the wages are competitive, to update all of the job descriptions and classifications and pay rates, and to make sure that it's compared to our labor market area so that we do maintain a competitive advantage. We've been able to also do sort of parallel studies in the public safety arena to get the data, study it. We did that in the police in 2023, and currently in the fire department as well. So, and, in addition, we've made improvements in some of the employee benefits. And, it's very difficult. We're up against Prop 2.5, and we're not the most affluent community in the Commonwealth. It's a very expensive area, to live, yet. We've made, and we continue to make, a lot of progress to make Yarmouth a great place to work with competitive wages, and hopefully, keep that retention going. This, the newer generations, not as much stay in positions when we get, so when I love it when we see the retirements of people that have been here for 27 years, 29 years, and hopefully that, for a lot of our positions keeps up. But staff retention is a key goal, and we're working on that currently. And the 6th key high priority area is to develop additional recreational facilities and sites. And the focus was to complete an analysis and planning for upgrade of recreational facilities.
So we have a consultant selected for that, and it's predominantly a fields analysis. And the interim recreation director is gathering all the leagues together to have a conversation about where our shortfalls are as the consultant is finishing up the scope, and then we'll start the process. There's a specific process for those type analyses. It starts out as determining what the field conflicts are, the demographics, and sort of what your demand is and your capacity. Then you marry that with the reality of the field condition to try to figure out how much more you need or what work you need to get done. We provide a lot of the services in this community. We've also added a gymnasium component to the study because right now Matikes is it, and we run most of the basketball programs for the region. We're doing a lot of work that has YD, we call it, Yarmouth and Dennis kids. So when we're about the same percentage split that we have for the school system. So we added the gymnasium component to see how much of a shortfall we have in that, because we know we have a capacity issue there. So the advantage is with the consultant on board, we're taking a look at sort of slipping out of the current scope. I mean, still doing that analysis, but also helping with Matikes and some of the design when they move forward with that.
So the recreation, that's a key element, and also the use of the capital improvement program was highlighted by the select board, and I thank the board for that because we've really beefed up the capital improvement program committee, and it's a great management tool to, over time, provide the funding for these improvements, and so you'll see that in the capital improvement program. And the seventh and final high priority area was to analyze regional combined public safety dispatching. And I'm happy to report the select board had 4 items on the areas of focus, and it started with the complete an intermunicipal agreement with our regional partners, and that's been completed. Seek state E911 funding for project implementation, and we've done that, and we've received enough funding to move forward into the design work for our new dispatching facility. Develop data on alternatives for comparison. We have that data, and having the communications and meetings with the regional partners is ongoing. So that project, it's a multi-year project, but it should be very successful in the future, hopefully in releasing some of the resources we're investing in that from 2 or 3 different avenues to focus on the public safety services that we need where funds are limited. So that the regional public safety dispatching is moving forward. And those are the highest priority goals that have been approved by the town. And the second section that the board did in its goal setting was to identify some additional items that were not in the highest priority goals, but were very important items that required future agenda discussion. And I just want to kind of run down those and make sure, I know I'm discussing these also with the chairman, and for when to put these on agendas moving forward. And it starts with, the first one is to have on a future agenda the PFAS contamination in the environment. This is the non-water supply from the airport, Barnstable County Fire Training Facility, and other sources, and we're planning for that meeting right now. I've been working with the Hyannis Park Civic Association that had an initial grant from the state and has conducted some new testing from this area that was done outside of the testing from the airport. And they're ready to present that, and we're trying to set up a meeting with the town has done an RFP, and we've got our new consultant on board, Kleinfelder, which is the same consultant that works with the water system PFAS. They have a team of experts, and they'll be assisting the town in evaluating this contamination in the environment. And we're just looking for a date where everybody can make it in front of the select board to brief you on it. So that's moving forward. We also want to discuss electronic voting for town meetings. That's the process of pressing the buttons, and that has not been scheduled yet, but we'll make a special note to put on the electronic voting for discussion at the select board. And the third item was strengthening participation with the town of Dennis in the regional school district for school-related issues, possible renegotiation of the regional agreement. And we have made a lot of progress on that. We've conducted some joint meetings with the town of Dennis and the school outside of the normal process. And I know we have a dual selectman participation between the chair and also our liaison for the school system. And we've made some progress. It's through that process last year, that's how we were able to finalize the budget for the school system, working with Dennis. Otherwise, that wouldn't have happened. And so far this year, there's been 2 meetings where normally we would still be waiting for our first meeting with the school. So we need more discussion of the strong regional school district communications, and we do have, I think, the superintendent scheduled for the next meeting to appear in front of the board to discuss these issues as well. So that's an ongoing process. It's going to take many, many meetings.
I know it's me, and it's been my push to talk about the renegotiation of the regional agreement, but just by way of mechanics of it, it's already outdated. I don't believe any of the new school is even mentioned in the agreement. I had asked the school committee at one point in time to look at opening that conversation up, because the way that the regional agreement reads now, it's only can be initiated by the school committee, but both towns want, to talk about it. So I don't know how we go about changing that. But I think if both towns want to open it up and negotiate it, that should be an option. And right now, we don't have the ability to do that. We can't make any changes, and they're not gonna make any movement to make changes, which is unfortunate, because, it's not necessarily a bad thing. We should be in regular discussions about these types of documents, because they become outdated very quickly. Mattakey's, I'm sure, is referenced in there. They've turned that over. It needs to be taken out. There's, like I said, it just needs to be updated constantly. So, when I talked to them about it, they made no movement to do it, and I've talked to people in Dennis, and I think that we as towns should be able to collectively renegotiate if we both choose to, but we're not able to do that right now.
So that is an item that needs more discussion on our agenda as well. And the fourth item we've had a few meetings on is the possible financial incentives to property owners for year-round rentals. And I know there's been a lot of discussion. We met with the Affordable Housing Trust several times and the town's assessors, and the problem that we have is that these financial incentives are great, but they're all underneath Prop 2.5, and there's that new legislation from the state where we uncovered that we're able to offer specific exemptions for property owners that have their homes in year-round rentals, but the money that goes to those exemptions comes right out of Prop 2.5. So, this is going to require more discussion, because it's harder than it looks, because you have to put up the money, and the way they have it structured, it competes with money that we have for, public safety, education, and everything else. So we're looking for ways to fund it that doesn't compete with the other funding sources, and but that is, I think, a very innovative strategy. We had meetings with Provincetown that has a program to do that, and we see how these systems work, and I think it's something that everybody's in favor of, but we need to locate funding that is not in competition with the primary services, so that it's not something that takes away from other areas, but it can be just added.
I would love to find a grant for that, to be able to do a trial, because, we all know what the Airbnbs and the short-term rentals are doing. There's no rentals for year-round people to stay here, and, home ownership right now is so unaffordable. And if we want to change our workforce, and get people to stay here, they need to have rentals available. So I would love to see the town somehow find some funding to just do some type of pilot program with this, just to see if we can incentivize people not to short-term rent their homes and to rent year-round.
We'd need probably, a home rule petition if we were going to put some kind of special local to Yarmouth tax on the short-term rentals themselves?
They're already taxed. I mean,
But I mean, additional that would only go into this fund for people who
One
are
idea,
renting
yeah. I mean,
year-round.
You could try that. There's another initiative that we're working on that might help us try to move this forward, is that the Affordable Housing Trust has put up funds from the trust to engage the Collins Center of the University of Massachusetts to do a short-term rental study for the town of Yarmouth. And in fact, I think I have a meeting tomorrow on that. It's a kickoff meeting. They're gearing up the study right now, and it's been done. I know that they did this in Provincetown, and that they're working potentially on a Cape-wide study, but the idea is we're gonna do for the first time a real deep dive on an analysis of where these rental units are, how many, are being used for the short-term rentals, what specific impact is that having on our year-round, and if we think using that data, it's going to really be a driver for the planning efforts surrounding housing in our town, maybe also provide some more justification for financial incentives and other things, and that's, I think, an important study, and we're very anxious to get that data and to share that with the select board and the community, and really begin to assess what kind of an impact are these seasonal rentals having on our housing stock.
Yeah, if I could just add, that this has been an initiative that I've been pushing with the Affordable Housing Trust, because there is a feeling among a number of selectmen or select board members in other communities that the short-term rentals are really having an adverse impact in terms of the year-round housing. But what we don't know is we don't know what the real situation here is in Yarmouth. A lot of it is anecdotal and just observations from very intelligent people. So I think the more we better understand how this market's working here in Yarmouth, the better off we'll be in terms of how to regulate it. There's some that argue that the Airbnb tax that's in place right now, might need to be increased, as a tool to sort of manage it. But unless you know what the impact is and what the problem is it's very difficult to sort of articulate a policy or a solution to address it. So hopefully we can do that. The reason why I mentioned the Airbnb tax is because, we rely on that revenue to pay for wastewater. And, where I'm coming from, I'll be very upfront. I'm worried about future phases for wastewater. Our revenue stream is very well tapped out, so to speak, to pay for phase one. We need to be looking down the road in terms of how we're going to generate additional revenues to finance future phases of wastewater. So it may very well be that, and again, I'm not suggesting that this is indeed a fact, but it could very well be that there may be a need to sort of bump that revenue stream up a bit, a tax a bit, to sort of create further limits on the growth of the Airbnb activity, yet provide a revenue stream to help pay for some of the additional wastewater improvements that we need to undertake. So there's a lot of thought going into this whole discussion. I do think that it would be beneficial for this board to put as a future, I think we should put this as a future agenda item, financial incentives to property owners for year-round rentals and year-round housing. I think we should do a workshop session just with ourselves, one meeting focused on housing, and bring people in, let them know that, we support the work that they're doing, because there's a lot of work that's being done by the various committees, and let's hear what they have to say. Maybe even bring the Housing Authority and some of the other partners that are working on this, and figure out a way where we can sort of compare notes on what we're doing, and at least invite people to put more information on some of these topics. A long time ago, I suggested there's some towns that are doing some creative things. Harwich has an incentive program. I suggested that, the town staff come and brief us on that. I know we've put that on hold until people are ready, but I think it's incumbent on us to basically identify as a priority a date for a workshop session where we can talk about additional tools that we should be thinking about adopting along this line. And we may even want to pitch to people some of to come in with some thoughts and recommendations on tools that other communities are using. Provincetown has got a number of initiatives that they've studied, they've looked at, they've evaluated, and there's no harm in not only inviting some other groups, but we may want to invite by Zoom or in person folks from some of these communities that have been working on this stuff. They might be more than happy to share their success stories and what they're working on. So I think
Would we see potentially, Mark, that what we could be doing is setting like, for instance, we meet on Tuesdays for the select board, but could we look at doing that as a completely separate day that we get together and that's all we talk about is housing?
yeah, I think
I think that's a great idea.
yeah, and let's just brainstorm and talk out. And what we can do is, like I said, I think it might be a good idea to invite representatives, particularly Provincetown, as Bob has said, Provincetown has spent a fair amount of time looking at housing because they, like a lot of other communities, but they're kind of in the worst situation of all the Cape communities. They are in real trouble. But they've been doing a lot of very creative things that it might be helpful to hear what they're doing and hear how it's working and, give the opportunity for, us and others in our community to ask them questions. So that's what I would like to pitch. And, we can I'm more than happy to flesh out a proposal and present it to a board at a future meeting on what that workshop would look like, who we'd invite. I'd be more than happy to do that so we can talk about this more as a future agenda item at one of our upcoming meetings.
I'll hold you to it.
Okay.
And as we do that, number 5 is tied in there, the exploration of developing housing for town employees. And this is one under the Mattakey's Utilization Committee study when we had the brainstorming session for all of the stakeholder groups. I put this right on the table, and so what we're trying to do is we've submitted to the MUC a proposal to have an area of the Mattakey's that could be reserved for, this would be moderate income housing, not the low income housing that maybe.
I'm
Scattered
glad to
site.
hear our staff don't qualify for the low-income housing.
Right, no, yeah, I know, that's good, but it's still, they can't afford market rate either. So, there's gonna be something in there that it's subsidized, but for the right level. So we are exploring how that's done, what areas we can do it in, and hopefully we'll have some programs that we can look at as we move forward to evaluate that housing piece. And the other one, we've had a lot of discussions on the impact of the bans on plastic products. That discussion has led to a town meeting article, and so we're going to have a lot more discussions. There's a task force that's going to be studying these impacts and reporting back to the board the idea is the way the bylaw that was a petition article was constructed may be able to be done better in a way that doesn't harm local businesses, but also gets us to the same ban. And so that's something that's received a lot of discussion and will continue to. And another excellent future agenda item was to explore the development of recreational and educational programming for youth during the summer season, 1 or 2 week-long programs focusing on science, math, and technology curriculum. And that's just a great idea. It needs more room for discussion by the recreational department, but we have that on our future agenda item list, and so we can't lose track of it. That's an excellent idea. And number 8 was additional participation with the Cape Cod Gateway Airport to advocate for a voting seat on the Commission for Yarmouth, adopt the proposed voluntary noise abatement procedures, and discuss moving the airport to the Mass Military Reservation. Now, we've had some of these discussions, but, we need some additional meetings, and now that the Barnstable Town Council has taken up the issue of studying the Mass Military Reservation, I want to tell you, I was at the Barnstable Town Hall last month, and I had occasion to meet with the new chairman of the town council, who indicated that he was willing and interested in inviting the Yarmouth Select Board to meet with the Barnstable Town Council to address these items. So some of the advance work's been done on that, and I think that that's a joint meeting with the Barnstable Town Council, not with the airport folks. So I just need to remind them of that. They said they were going to work on an invitation and get that out, but they indicated that they have a desire to do that. They would like to meet with the Select Board. It's just, we need to set up the mechanics of how that's done. So I hope that the Yarmouth Select Board would be interested in having a joint meeting with the Barnstable Town Council on the airport-related issues.
My question would be, if we do meet with the council, do we want to just limit the conversation just to airport issues?
Or there are some other items that we, yeah.
For example, we have to do a Barnstable-Yarmouth watershed wastewater permit, right? There needs to be at least some discussion of that, and that means the two boards are going to have to sign off on that. The town of Barnstable, particularly Hyannis Harbor, needs to be dredged, and there's going to be some question about where that dredge material goes. And I would argue that the two towns should be supportive of some kind of coastal study to better understand the sediment movement processes in Lewis Bay, in and around Lewis Bay. Because the last time we dredged, there was an abundance of material put in certain areas that ended up back in Lewis Bay. One of my friends who lives in West Yarmouth is fond of talking about Egg Island turning into a landing strip and impedes a lot of the water flow in that area, which only leads to further deterioration of water quality in Lewis Bay. So my hope is that we can work together on proper studies so that before any dredging is done, Yarmouth is at the table and has a say in where the beach nourishment material goes. And it's in places that clearly are eroding, but don't necessarily lead to more water quality problems in Lewis Bay. Because like I said, this area that's now a landing strip has become a popular destination spot for people who, boaters and others that go out there. And, we've heard some complaints about it. So I think those are at least a few items that we should talk about. Another one I would be very concerned about is water supply. The town of Barnstable is looking at water supply issues. They need new supplies. If they have a problem, guess what? They need water from us. There have been studies that have been done that showcase that they're very challenged in terms of their water supply situation, and there's a significant amount of growth. At some point, our towns need to really talk about water supplies and whether or not they're sufficient to handle some of the projected growth. The situation in Barnstable, I think, is should be an area of real study and attention. So, in any event, as you've heard me complain before, that the water withdrawals in Barnstable at the Mara wells are excessive and take a tremendous amount of water out of the Mill Pond Marsh Conservation Area, which is owned by the town of Yarmouth. And I would love to see some investigation of the permits and the water. Under the Water Management Act, you're only supposed to withdraw a certain amount of water from wells so that you don't have an adverse impact on surrounding wetlands. And that's been an ongoing issue there. They draw 3 million gallons a day out of those wells, and that's an enormous amount of water. And I love telling the story about when I was a kid. I used to go on a boat ride behind Treasure Island. Used to go on a boat behind Treasure Island.
Yeah.
If you try to take a boat out behind Treasure Island, which is now a tattoo parlor, if you try to go travel by water in the back there, you wouldn't get anywhere because there is no water anymore back there. So something's going on, and I would argue that it's in the interest of both towns to work together to further examine the water management permit and to see whether or not those withdrawals are having an adverse impact on Yarmouth's conservation area. I think it's an important issue. So those are just a handful of issues that I would really like to talk about to get together.
Tracy, do you have
We all
any
take a
others that
weekend
you?
together.
What?
Maybe we all take a weekend
It
together.
may take a day, at least.
Well, this Route 28 Rotary, you know, I mean, that's something
was thinking of.
that's another thing, the traffic pattern there between the two towns. There's always items, I mean, we share services, weights and measures, I'm not sure how that's going, where we're at with that agreement. And we should always be having dialogues. I don't think we've met with them the last time I remember meeting with them was at the police station, it was over wastewater.
I know we haven't met I'm coming up on my 3 years as a select board member, and we've never met with them during my tenure.
Since 2017, I don't recall ever meeting with them.
Them about taking septic at one point in time.
Oh, that's right. But I don't think those were not a board-to-board. I don't think we had full boards discussion with them. But I think we should offer to host it.
Absolutely.
That's great. Yeah, and I've got the president of the town council, he gave me his card. He said he was very anxious to meet with us, and
Craig Tamich, yeah.
yeah.
There was somebody from the Barnstable Town Council that asked the state to look at the Mass Maritime thing, because it was on the news recently.
Yeah.
And Katie Service was on the radio talking about the negative with that.
Oh, you mean Joint Base Cape Cod?
Yeah, going to the Mass Military Reservation.
Well, there is a master plan study being done out at the base. The Guard and the Coast Guard are used to operating on civilian airports or within a civilian airport. And the Guard has actually expressed openly their support for some kind of civilian operation there as a way.
I'll find the link to that podcast when she called in. It was very informative. Send
I
it.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And the last future agenda item was assess possible town common in the area between Simpkins, MacArthur, and Town Hall areas, including possible relocation of a section of Wood Road to create potential library sites. A lot there, but we've had those discussions initiated on the select board for possible town common, and that's turned into a town meeting article, so we're making good progress there. And
Mark always gets his articles moved. Mine is still sitting there. I don't know what I gotta do.
Which one?
Well, I'm just saying, the ones that he likes, somehow they make it to the agenda. Mine are still waiting.
well, what we're going to do is we're going to look at this whole list. If there's anything that hasn't been on,
This town common idea isn't just my idea. You were on the committee that came up with the idea.
But it moved quickly, as soon as you brought it.
like a rocket.
Like 5 rockets.
Again, I bring this up, and a lot of it has to do with just, reflecting on, the passing of John Sears. When he left us last year, I think this is an idea that I believe he would have gravitated towards, and he would be showing up at meetings like this, urging us to do something about it. And, I think, so that's what's inspired me to sort of be somewhat persistent about this, is because your committee, Tracy, came up with a very good idea, a very good proposal. I wish I was on the select board back then, because, I think we might have handled the recommendations of your committee a lot differently. But in any event, here we are, we're there, and I'm pleased that this board has been very supportive, and Bob has been very helpful. So thanks for...
I like the idea of the workshops. I mean, like focusing one night, one workshop
We used
on
to
one
do it.
issue. I think I can see more than housing that we need to do on
Eric
that
used to
kind
have
of thing.
workshops almost every other meeting. Got right to business on just certain
Right,
details.
so we'd have a regular business meeting like we're doing tonight, and then we'd have periodic workshops. And maybe we should get in the habit of once a month
Right,
as focusing on a workshop meeting
right.
where we can drill down on a particular area and come out of it with some specific recommendations in terms of how to move forward on a particular issue.
And I truly feel that housing should be the first one, because there are just so many pending issues that we have
Right.
there.
So I'm happy to help pull that one together.
Thank you.
And once again, thanks very much to the select board for the leadership in setting up our whole organization of a town with clear goals, things that we want to accomplish and the areas of focus that say, get them done, and it's been very helpful.
Any other discussion on these by any of the board?
If they work 365 days a year, okay, maybe take Christmas off, we might be able to make some dents.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on, then, we have board and committee actions. I turn it over to our appointment chair.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. You'll all be glad to know that Ian Kelly from Muck has formalized his resignation with a letter resigning from the board due to unforeseen circumstances. So I just would like to have us accept his resignation with thanks and wish him the best.
That's a motion.
So moved.
And second, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Okay, also with Muck, I'd like to move that we appoint Casey Schmidt, his description is in the packet, to Muck, to an appointment that will run until a recommendation has been made by the Muck Committee and accepted by the Select Board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, passes unanimous.
Okay, and then finally, I'd like to recommend that as representative from the Historical Commission, David Giannakopoulos be appointed as the Historical Commission rep to the Community Preservation Committee.
Second.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no, passes unanimous. Okay,
Madam Chair, while we're on board and committee actions, can I I have a question for the appointments chair. As we all know, we lost recently an incredibly talented, very dedicated, hardworking member of our community, Gary Ellis. I think, as we all know, he did an incredible job chairing the Community Preservation Committee. He did an incredible job in almost anything he was involved in. He served the town incredibly well. I think some of us are still in a state of shock that we've lost him. I know recently there was a gathering, of friends and family to sort of celebrate his life and all his contributions. What my question for the chair is, having to fill, these are big shoes to fill. Is that a decision that comes before our board? Are we the ones that make the decision on who the chairman is of that committee, or is that a decision made by the
We
committee?
would decide on a new member to be appointed, but the committee would decide on their own officers.
They designate their own chair? Okay.
Gary was in an at-large position, so yes, that comes back to the board.
So that'll come back to the board.
Appointment not for chairmanship,
Right,
choice.
the chairmanship is the committee.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, then we come to future agenda items. We have the school committee, the school superintendent coming to speak to us at our next meeting on the 25th. We have kind of a tight plate for that one, unless someone feels there's something.
He's coming before they make a vote. They're not voting until March, right?
That was my suggestion, because he'd already has met with the Finance Committee, and in essence, from the discussions that we had at that joint meeting, there wasn't expected to be any change from what he could use as his presentation now. It was felt that the school committee was going to go along with those recommendations, so that what he'd be presenting to us will be what the ultimate vote is.
I've never had them come to us before.
I think it's great to get it before they vote. I'm telling you, do that. If you can do that, you're pulling off a magic trick, and
Puts a lot of,
do it every time. That way, if there's some significant input, what you say could wind up having a big impact. Usually, once it's a fait accompli,
there's not much you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the agenda looks great, and I also am pleased that we'll be meeting with the Community and Economic Development Committee.
Yes.
I think our regular meetings have been incredibly productive and have been very important.
For future agenda items, I'd only also suggest that, Mark, we'll put you on the agenda for March 18th to talk about the housing workshop implementation.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is identify a couple of speakers that can talk about very specific proposals that have had or are likely to have some meaningful impact in their communities along the lines of what we've talked about before, and see if we can build a workshop meeting around their availability. And hope the first priority would be if they can come in person, and we can do a workshop session, and I think maybe invite a committee or two to join us and to sit in and participate in the dialogue.
Right, so I put you right
Yep,
down there
go
on the
ahead.
18th.
You got it.
Okay, does anyone have any other agenda items that they want to add at this time?
We'll also look at our list, too, and see what we can fill in
That would be great.
during this time frame. I think we'll do that. It'd be good to do it strategically rather than just lump stuff on.
Bob, while we're on this topic, you had mentioned before that you'll be coming soon to update us on the PFAS Kleinfelder. I mean, I think the timing for that is important, Madam Chair. I mean, we should be thinking about a time sometime in the next month or two where there's some space. So I would really pitch that. And I also think we need to have a conversation or get an update from somebody on, the plastics, the bylaw, and we postponed it. And, we heard from segments of the community that were kind of a little frustrated that, we were postponing it. So there's an ad hoc group somewhere doing something to figure out a way to sort of path forward in terms of implementing it, right, Bob?
That's right.
So that we're not caught
Locate them
again
in
with
chat.
being, well, we just don't want to see us being caught again
But that's
close
what I
to the
mean.
date, and they say, gee, right.
Exactly. So I think we've got to figure, we've got to put a lasso in that group and bring them in, because that was just a weird, that whole article, that whole discussion, and the reaction from the townspeople. And I was surprised that the Board of Health was looking to us somehow when we were looking to them. So I don't want to get into that situation again where we're kind of
Right.
being asked very legitimate questions from the community and we're just not prepared.
Also see if we could extend an invitation to the school committee to come to talk to us about the regional agreement.
What I would recommend is I know Tracy has some ideas about the agreement. I think we should find some time to kind of go through it and go, at least amongst ourselves, have a consensus as a board as to what needs to be updated and changed.
So we can have that as the first agenda.
Yeah, I would make that as the first, sort of a two-step
And the second
meeting.
would be to
The
invite
first
them.
meeting would be to, amongst us, are we all on the same page with the issues that need to be updated on the agreement? We may find that we're all in agreement, or we may find that we're not. But it would be easier, it would be far better and more productive if we were actually, we figured that out first amongst ourselves before we walked into a meeting.
Would you be ready to do that, Tracy, for April 1st or April 15th?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go through it, where there were items from our last go-around that never got addressed, but those are bigger issues, I just think.
And I think it's worth an agenda item.
Yeah.
So that there may be others in the community that might want to come in. We may want to have a public comment reaction session. We may even want to do some social media in advance of the meeting. Put out some Facebook posts and Twitter posts or whatever, an advance press release inviting people to come to our meeting and let them know that we're going to talk about this. I mean, that's one of the things that I really want to do with our communications team, is do advance notices on things we want to hear from people on.
Right, well,
Right.
and if we moved it to April 1st to do that, that would give us some timing
It's
to
on.
do that. Okay, we'll put it down there. All righty. Moving on, we have the consent agenda.
We have a $250,000 donation
It's amazing.
to the police department from the Yarmouth Police Foundation for the purpose of the firearms trailer project that that they're working on, so that's really great news. They promised to help, and that's a pretty good help.
Maybe a really special thank you note.
Now, we also have an item for an application for special entertainment. Is this going under,
We
is
have
this part of the
an
consent agenda,
amendment,
or?
late filed item as an amendment to the consent agenda for the approval of the Winter Carnival on February 15, 16, and 17 from the Yarmouth Chamber of Commerce. We didn't get it in time to put it in the packet on the agenda. So if you could.
So Madam Chair, I move the consent agenda with the added item from the Yarmouth Chamber of Commerce.
Do I have a second? Okay. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimous. Okay. And town administrator updates.
I do have an update for the board I thought was pretty important. On Super Bowl Sunday, we had our first sort of major winter storm that was a major plowing event. And I just wanted to highlight some of the activities of the Department of Public Works. Our star on this particular storm, just because of all the scheduling, was Roby Whitehouse, the Assistant Director of Public Works. And she was in direct communications with me throughout the storm, and I just thought did a very admirable job in managing a lot of disparate sort of elements that went into making that snow removal effort in some of the neighborhoods a success when it, had the potential for being a delayed type of thing. The number of plows that we have access to and the drivers is not as large as it used to be. It's getting harder and harder to get the contractors signed up. And I know in advance, I've been working for the last couple of months, the department had requested, and I think they reported to the board earlier on this, some increased contract amounts, and they've been working on getting the contractors, but with a smaller sort of staff, we needed to make sure that we made some adjustments. We had to close down the disposal area and the library just for their Sunday hours so that we could allow, the staff members of sanitation to do the normal plowing for all of the residential routes. And, that was the key thing. I know it was inconvenient for some people that like to get out Sunday and go to the dump, but we wanted to try to get people off the roads to begin with. It was a safety factor. Plus, we needed that personnel to augment the crews that were out in the 35 neighborhood plowing routes that somehow, we're all taken care of with people doubling up, handling more than one route. And the DPW also, this is something that I think you'll find pretty interesting. They've been working on a recruitment project among town employees. And I think, we're used to seeing maybe somebody from the Gulf or the water man a truck and do plowing. But for the first time now, we've had actual administrative staff that is being trained to plow snow in emergency situations. People like, I don't want to, single them out, but like the administrative assistants in some of the departments, people you would not consider to be snow plowers are now trained plow people, and, we really thank them. I mean, it's a Yarmouth team effort. Yes, they're able to get a little bit of extra overtime money for their efforts, but without their help, it's really not the main roads, but all of those 35 neighborhood routes that we wouldn't have been able to finish that, we usually have at least 15 to 20 more vendors on. And so that has been a real interesting facet of this that has been led by Roby and the department and that has resonated with some of the staff members. I just thought you'd get a real kick out of. And there are other new drivers as well. We've had, and a lot of people did, you do your normal route, and then thankfully, it wasn't this giant foot of snow that we got bogged down with. It was going kind of quick, so people took on two routes. They doubled their work, and we got everybody cleaned out by the time of kickoff. And so I think that's an interesting thing to add.
Maybe an incentive?
And, listen, I'm not going to say we didn't miss a couple of roads and have to go back and take care of them. So the folks, that had any inconvenience, thank you for letting us know. But all of the missed roads were documented and taken care of as quickly as possible. So I think, moving on with the new people and the new routes and the doubling up, I think we'll be in pretty good shape. And again, thanks to the whole team, everyone that participated, and thanks to Roby Whitehouse. So I just wanted to give you a little report on that.
Next, we'll have some of our staff going for their CDL, so they can be handling the big trucks. Thank you. I would entertain a motion
So moved.
and a second. Okay, all in favor?
A motion and
Aye.
second.
And then
I
some.
can try.
Okay, thank you. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.